All right, good morning, friends. We are doing it. We are having a conversation about how to steer ourselves through the weeds of work. This is the hands-free drive to work because you can at the same time keep your hands on the wheel and have a conversation about leading yourself or steering yourself through the weeds of work. I hope you're enjoying this still and thinking about these concepts of how to steer ourselves through the weeds of work. Really it came from some reading that I did about Peter Drucker. Peter Drucker is a management expert. A lot of universities use his work. And Peter Drucker said, well, more and more, we have to learn how to manage ourselves. More and more as the economy and the world changes, we're having to learn not to just be managed by someone or steered by somebody else, but we have to learn how to manage ourselves. And that's when I really started looking into this, because all the leadership books that you read say that you can't learn to lead others until you first learn how to lead yourself. And so we need a prequel. We need a prerequisite, something that comes before leadership. We need to remind ourselves from time to time of what it's like to lead ourselves. And that's what we've been having a conversation about. We said we'll never act differently. If we're leading ourselves, we'll never act differently until we decide differently. We'll never decide differently until we think differently. And so we started thinking differently with this first question. First question was, what is the guiding purpose of work? What is the guiding purpose of work? And we said simply a met need is the guiding purpose of work. We have to meet a need before we get profits and incentives that come back to ourselves. And then we said we have to decide differently. And that's what we've been talking about in the last few videos, that when we learn to make decisions, when we learn that we make decisions from our identity, now we can go and change up the identity so the identity now makes decisions the way we want it to. Because we said water always acts like water. Casey always acts like Casey. If I want to decide differently, I have to change the very core elements of what Casey is. I have to change my identity, develop these new character traits, and that's what we've been talking about, the traits, and that'll help us decide differently. And now we're to the end to say, how do we act differently? And that question is the first question is, what's the guiding purpose of work? The second question is, who achieves that purpose? We got to say who achieves the purpose, what kind of person achieves that purpose, and become that kind of person. And then 3, how do they do it? And here's just some principles that will continue to say, this is how you do it. This is how you manage yourself well through the weeds of work. And the first one's going to be obvious because we've been talking about this kind of line of thinking, but we'll keep going from here and give some really practical things. But the very first thing that we have to do if we're going to manage ourselves well through the weeds of work is serve with a cost. Serve with a cost. And the reason that that's so important, what do I do? A lot of people say, what do I do? What do I do? Serve with a cost is like a signpost. If we're making sure that, I always think about this, Joe, this is for you, brother. Joe drives a truck from one destination. He picks up a load and drives it to another destination, and he dumps that load. He makes sure that he takes stress off the people that he's helping, not add stress to the people that he's helping. And so one of the things, when he does that, if he's thinking about only the clients he serves as he drives that dump truck, if he's thinking about only the clients that he serves, he's flying down the road and making sure that he goes fast enough that their needs are met. But the other thing Joe has to remember is that there's other people on the road. There are people driving down the road to his left, to his right, and if he speeds and only cares about the needs of his clients, he can actually forget about the needs of the community or the neighbors that he also is serving as he works. And so what we need sometimes, if we try to say, okay, loving our neighbor, really serving the needs of the neighbor, a met need comes before any profits or incentives, we still sometimes need a speed limit sign. We still sometimes need the yield sign on the side of the road. Even though we're guiding ourselves in that way, we still need these signposts that just give us quick reminders to say, hey, don't forget, when you're taking care of needs, this is one way that you might do it. Because if we don't, we'll catch ourselves going 75 and a 35. And so one of these signposts, and that's what we'll talk about, all these things of what to do, there'll be just little signposts along the way. Number one, what to do is serve with a cost. And I know that, for example, Peter Drucker, that I just mentioned a little bit ago, when he wrote a management principles book, he talked about President Truman. One of our presidents of the past led us out of the, a post-war And it really, when he became the vice president, he was chosen to be the vice president, according to Peter Drucker, because he was completely concerned with domestic issues, things in America. That's why that's why President Truman was chosen as the vice president. But then as his presidency went along, he realized he was going to have to become drastically involved in foreign affairs. Not because that's what he wanted to do, but that's what this country needed. Yeah, that's right. He actually looked at the needs around him and he said, I'm going to serve with a cost to me personally. Now, we can't take this and arrest it and start trying to apply it to everybody else. Because if we're not careful, we'll be saying, you need to serve with a cost, and the person you need to serve is me. And so we can't arrest this concept and say, oh yeah, that's right, we need to serve with a cost, so everybody needs to start serving me. No, again, this is a way to manage yourself. This is a way for Casey to manage Casey. I need to look around and see the needs around and start to serve with a cost, like President Truman did. I need to look and just say, is this really what I want to be involved in my current position? Or is this what is needed from my current position? Is my business, is the goals that I've set out to accomplish as a business, is that what I just want to do? Or is that something that is really needed in our community right now? And if we do that, if we look at this signpost, it's just a very simple, and this is again the first one, we'll be short today, but if we start to look at these signposts as we go, and we remember on a daily basis, on a weekly basis, we remind ourselves as we're developing these new traits that we make better decisions from, we're actually developing these new rules to live by. We will absolutely be poised. We'll be productive. We'll be engaged in our work. We won't be thinking about what else we have going on in the day. We'll be able to laser focus on the needs that we're there to meet, and our work will become incredibly, incredibly productive and incredibly focused on meeting the needs that our specific role or our specific industry is created to meet. Man, that serving with a cost, just today, if we could put one thing in practice today, it would be just serve with a cost. Think about one thing that I can do that costs me, and I can actually meet a need. It's incredible when I say this. A lot of times, people will say, "Oh, it'll come back to you," and I'm not even saying that. I'm not saying it's necessarily going to come back to you. I'm saying it often does, though. A lot of times I'll serve with a cost. One of the ways I do it as a salesperson is I'll give advice to someone about a product that they don't even buy from me. They might buy it from somebody else. And that's one of the ways that I can serve with a cost. I can look and say, this is not going to benefit me necessarily, but I can meet their needs by helping them think through and give them advice on certain insurance products. And so when I've done that in the past, though, a lot of times that person has said, you know what, I think I want to move these products from where I am now to where you are. And obviously that does benefit me. And so a lot of people say, well, if you'll do this, it'll come back around, And I'm not even necessarily saying it does. I'm saying it makes our communities a place that we want to live. If we all were doing this for one another and we continue to serve with a cost, even if it didn't necessarily come back to me, then I would, be able to manage myself well. I'd be poised. I wouldn't be, bouncing off ideas. I would know exactly where to go next. I would be able to understand what is my next wise move. I'd be completely productive, completely engaged in my work. So if you want to be a part of that, I do. If you want to be a part of that, then let's start right now. What do? You serve with a cost. And again, in the comments, I love it if you do this, put something in the comments saying, hey, here's how I've served with the cost in the past, or after thinking through this, here's some way I can serve with the cost now. And we'll start doing it together and learning from one another. Thank you for listening to the Hands Free Drive to Work. Have an awesome day.